Welcome to Keepers, the very best and possibly only fantasy football show on the internet. I'm Matt Ufford, and the chalkboard behind me hasn't changed since week 1. Let's kick things off, that's a football term, with week 7 starts and sits. Start Lance Moore. The Saints have the best passing offense in the league, and the Bucs are 31st in passing yards allowed. Although, in a weird statistical anomaly, Tampa's given up a league-low 4 passing touchdowns. I have no idea what that means. Stats are stupid. Just start Lance Moore, okay? Sit Michael LaShore. The good news for LaShore is that Job at Best won't return this season, which, side note, really sad for Best. But the bad news is that the Bears are the #1 rush defense in the league. I'd sit LaShore unless you've got a PPR league. Hey, remember Felix Jones? He'll be starting for the Cowboys this week, and you should start him too against the shoddy Carolina D. If you didn't snatch him up off of waivers when you had the chance, I'm sorry. I can't do all of the work for you. Start Kenny Britt. Buffalo's given up 13 passing TDs, same as super awesome teams like the Chiefs and Titans. He'll continue to get red zone targets, and you may even catch some of them. Sit Brandon LaFell. I was high on him earlier this season, but if you're tempted to start him this week, look elsewhere. The Cowboys have the best pass defense in the league, and LaFell only got 3 targets in the Panthers' last game. Start the Vikings defense. It's no secret that Minnesota has a top 10 defense, but it's going to rank even higher after this week. The Cardinals have the worst offensive line in the NFL, and the craptastic John Skelton under center. 3 points. Sit Sidney Rice. Listen, I love seeing the Seahawks wide receivers get open and score long touchdowns more than pretty much anyone, but it'll be a different story in San Francisco. Russell Wilson is improving, but he's had problems with edge pressure, something he didn't see much of from New England. And Rice won't get the separation he got against the subpar Pats secondary. Steer clear. I know I sound pretty confident with those picks, so let's do a reality check. Last week was the usual hodgepodge of generally solid advice, but I had a huge whiff by telling you to start Alex Smith. 200 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 picks for a whopping 2.5 fantasy points. Thanks, ass. I'm convinced he did it to spite me for years about joking about his little carny hands. Guess I had it coming. All right, back to business. Who's on the trading block this week? Buy low on Matt Stafford. The Lions are somehow second in the NFL in total yards. The slow starts and low touchdown output from Stafford should normalize, and he'll go back to being a top fantasy quarterback. Full disclosure, I may be saying this to feel better about drafting him in one of my leagues. Sell high on Sean Green. He had an incredible 34 fantasy points in week 6. That's more than twice as much as he had through the first 5 weeks combined. If you give him the chance, he'll just get back to the business of screwing you over. Buy low on Akeem Nicks. He missed a month with his stupid foot injury and looked less than full speed against the Niners. But he's a top 5 fantasy receiver when healthy, and I'd try to grab him before he goes up against the lousy Redskins D. Sell on Brandon Lloyd. I can't really say sell high, can I? Lloyd consistently puts up solid yardage, but he has just 1 touchdown through 6 games. Even with an offense as good as the Patriots, you don't want the guy who's the 7th option in the red zone. And now the weather report with Isaac.
It's good to have you back.
Matt, across the nation we'll be experiencing widespread, wonderful weather. The NFL will finally get a little peace and a little quiet on the playing field, allowing their players to critically focus in on their tackling, rushing, and general footballery skills. Look for the teams with the, quote, best players to take it all, and look for the team with the, quote, worst players to lose, having no variable external weather forces to deal with. Back to you.
Thanks, Isaac. Hire and fire. Hire Josh Gordon and fire Greg Little. I'm a little concerned about Gordon's targets, but he's established himself as a dangerous deep threat, which is more than I can say for Little, who might just be the worst #1 wideout in the NFL. Oof. Hire Santana Moss and fire Darius Hayward-Bay. Moss isn't a weekly start, but I like his matchup this weekend. The Giants tend to play down to opponents when they're at home, so I think Moss will get some good looks in a shootout. He's more likely to help your team than Hayward-Bay, an inconsistent receiver in a stagnant offense. Look at his weekly stat lines and explain to me how he's owned in 3/4 of all leagues. It doesn't make sense. Drop him. At running back, hire Daryl Richardson and fire Jonathan Stewart. Richardson's played well all season, but it was especially apparent as he averaged almost 7 yards per carry against a tough Dolphins D. He's played his way into a timeshare of Steven Jackson, and I suspect he'll only see a bigger share of the workload going forward. It'll be a good spot start depending on the matchup and your buy situation. As for Stewart, the only reason to hold on to him is if you're waiting for D'Angelo Williams to get hurt. But you know what? Williams ain't gonna get hurt. D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart are duty-bound to always stay healthy and make each other useless to fantasy owners. I even dropped D'Angelo in one of my leagues to scoop up Felix Jones this week. It felt great. Good riddance, crappy Panthers. That's it for this week of Keepers. Your outdoor activity of the week, apple picking. So fun. If you're a Michael Vick owner, I recommend skipping the apples and just buying a gallon of cider. Pour a glass and add bourbon, drink it, throw the cider out, and switch to straight whiskey. Finish that spiral you started when you drafted Vick. Set your lineups. See you next week.